today we are joined by Rosalyn White. She is the co-director of Ratna Linga Institute. And she has been teaching spiritual wellness classes in meditation and sacred art for over 25 years. And so she will share her vast knowledge of Tibetan teachings with us and help us get in touch with our deeper selves and help us find balance, health, and purpose that we so need given the crisis that's going on right now. So today she will be talking about key practices for finding spiritual wellness, developing wisdom and compassion. So take it away, Rosalyn. We're excited to learn from you.
But we're so happy to have you here, and Linda's going to help me with the presentation today as well. So in the Buddhist tradition, there's what's called the two wings of enlightenment. So they're wisdom and compassion. So just like a bird needs two wings in order to fly, just with one wing doesn't work. In our practice, we need to develop our wisdom and our compassion. So wisdom is what we get in touch with when we do some meditation. It's our kind of deeper inner strength where we can kind of get the source of our knowledge. And then once we're in touch with that at our heart center, at our deepest self, then it's naturally occurs that we will act with compassion. And that means to work with, helping to alleviating the suffering of others. And I just wanted to open it up too for people if they would like to share from their spiritual tradition what is similar to getting in touch with your wisdom. So I know in Hindu tradition, there's the idea of the Atma, like the deepest self or the broadest self. In Christianity, sometimes we talk about being in a state of grace. So if anyone would like to share what their understanding of wisdom means from their spiritual tradition, we'd like to just invite you to share that now.
I think there's a universal tradition, really, that all traditions fit into. I think the idea of essence and presence are perhaps the sources of where wisdom and grace and beauty and love and truth and oneness, I think all of those emerge out of presence, but even deeper out of essence. The presence of essence, or you could even say the essence of presence. So that's what I would offer. And I thank you so much for that opportunity to share.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think no matter what words you put to them, it's all pointing to the same thing, to that real essence, the presence, the inner wisdom, grace. So yes, thank you, Tom. Those are really good comments.
Nice words,
Yeah. Also, I wanted to mention that in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which is the lineage that we're part of, in Tibetan healing, it's considered very important to have a spiritual component. So when somebody has an illness, often the first practice that a doctor will give is to chant a mantra for the healing Buddha. And that's considered a very important part of the healing process. And it's even considered important to be practicing that meditation and the chanting of the healing Buddha to prevent illness from arising also. Because in the Tibetan tradition, the spiritual imbalance is often the source of illness. So this is a really a good way to keep oneself healthy in body, speech, and mind is to be in touch with your essence, your inner wisdom and strength. So we're going to talk a little more in depth about wisdom and then compassion. So in Tibetan tradition, we talk about wisdom comes through hearing the teachings. So that would be the teachings of your own guru, your teacher, or reading the words of the Buddha, reflecting on them. So thinking about what they mean, not just the words. And then on a deeper level, meditating on them. So like really bringing those messages to heart. And through this experience of meditation, this practical experience, you start to see the kind of the emptiness of forms. That really the ego doesn't have a real substantial quality to it. So there's some metaphors in the Tibetan tradition that our ego is just like a dream, last night's dream, or it's an illusion like a magician creates, or it's bubbles in a brook flowing water. So these are all kind of examples of how we think of our ego, our self, our small s self, as being real. But if we look from a broader perspective, from the perspective of our deepest inner wisdom, we can see that the reality of the ego is very fragile. There's no real solid entity there. And that actually has a very freeing quality when we can see that. So, what it also does is helps to inform our acts of compassion. So when we're touching our deepest inner wisdom, we're naturally inclined to act with compassion, and we're also our compassion becomes informed through our wisdom, so that we can see really what somebody needs. So as an example, if we see maybe an alcoholic on the street asking for money, maybe giving money is not such the best thing to do, because maybe they would buy more things to drink, and instead maybe we would want to buy them a sandwich or some food, and that would be kind of acting with compassion that's informed with wisdom.
I wanted to touch on something you just said, Rosalyn, which is that I've worked a long time in San Francisco, so there's a lot of opportunity for this exact thing you mentioned. And one of the things that I always noticed was when we're going to talk about bringing these things into our lives. And when we make a donation, if we make an offering to somebody of food on the street, that we're not only giving them something to eat, but we're showing them kindness. And so we're showing them that they're a being that's worthy of something that we're going to give them. And so it's a different kind of healing in a way. And so it just came to mind doing that, and somebody's reaction once when I did that in the city. And it is a different kind of giving. But in terms of compassion, we'll look at our words here, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Compassion is caring deeply enough about the suffering of others to relieve it as much as possible, as though those suffering were our loving parents. And that's a very common Buddhist analogy, that every being was our mother or our father at one time. So we should care for them like that, and like those beings cared for us. It is directed towards ourselves, also a really important point, and towards our enemies and strangers, and ultimately to all living beings. So, as Rosalyn mentioned, when we start cutting through our own kind of attachments, or start penetrating this kind of thing that we think is there, that we see as an ego, and we start penetrating it and gaining this kind of wisdom that we're talking about, compassion does naturally arise. It does. One teacher I heard mention that give this analogy of if you're asleep, if you're awake, like a person is awake, and their friend like Rosalyn here next to me is asleep and she's having a nightmare. and I'm going, I wouldn't just go, oh yeah, look at Rosalyn's karma to have a nightmare. I'd be going, wake up, wake up. That's the kind of flowing that kind of happens as we develop wisdom. And one other, just a couple of points about compassion here. The other is that there's a Buddhist practice called the Four Immeasurables, and it's compassion, love, joy, and equanimity. And I wanted to make kind of a distinction here because I think it's helpful that in that kind of a practice, love means wanting to make others happy. And compassion means wanting to take away their suffering. So we can kind of start to discern with our wisdom these two different positions or different outflow of feeling. Compassion is the one that wants to take away their suffering. The other thing that's important, I think, when we think of spiritual healing, and it's talked a lot about in many of Nyingma lineage writings, is ease. So what we need to have to develop for ourselves is a deep ease of body, of language, and of mind. Because it's through ease that we can start to become aware of this kind of deeper presence that Tom mentioned earlier. And so it's just very important to develop. It also allows our own wisdom to come through because some of the kind of mind chatter kind of calms down. So it's not just meditating like, now my mind is calm, which is very important, but you can begin to just in your practice, wherever you are, to just notice developing a deep sense of ease. It can happen. You can do it anytime, anywhere. It's just something to bring the mind and attention back to. And I was noticing your wellness wheel that was up earlier on, and I was kind of looking at each of those and thinking that, wow, you can bring ease to, you just look at each of the sections of that wheel. You can bring ease and caring to each of those sections in your own life and start to kind of penetrate some deeper meaning and some deeper feeling, some of the things that Tom was referring to. And I think that's the main points. You could go on for a month-long retreat, but for this time, I think that's what we have to offer is these 4 points about compassion and bringing it into your own life through the creation of ease, through noticing the suffering of others, through developing your own wisdom, and through the act of something like giving, like to this person in San Francisco that I had mentioned. The other kind of nice practice aid is Buddhist art. So there's a Buddhist thangka, meaning a Buddhist painting, called the Healing Buddha. And we're sitting in a Healing Buddha classroom, and there's a thangka on the back. Unfortunately, it's too far away. But if you take any Buddhist art that attracts you, that is that brings you to this view of peace. You don't have to know any of the symbolism. You don't have to know who this is and what they're holding in their hand and why there's something over their head. Just let it bring that presence of peace, and then wisdom will come and compassion will come.
Okay, and so to experience a little ease ourselves, we're going to do a kumne exercise, which is it's kind of a Tibetan style yoga. So we'll go ahead and stand, and you just need to move your arms like this. So if you could just make sure there's space where you're standing to do that. So you want to stand with your feet about hip distance apart. So we're going to do this practice, and then we're going to sit and chant the mantra and do a short meditation. So we'll be doing this 3 times. So you want to let your arms gradually come up from your sides, keeping the palms facing down. And as they come up overhead, you want to have your hands facing outward, your palms facing outward. And once overhead, you want to give a nice stretch up towards the sky. Have your feet really planted on the earth. And then take a nice deep breath and slowly let it out as your arms slowly come back down to your sides. Okay. And we'll do 2 more times. This exercise is called flying. I like it because we've got our 2 wings of enlightenment here, our wisdom and our compassion. So go ahead and let our arms slowly come up from our sides. Keep your breathing nice and deep. Once your arms are overhead, give a nice stretch up towards the sky. Deep breath into the belly and expanding the chest. And slowly let the breath out as the arms slowly come back down to our sides. And once more, we'll let our arms slowly float up from our sides. Almost like you're not making any big effort. You're just letting them float up. Letting the air lift your wings like it does for a bird. A nice stretch up towards the sky. Feet really planted on the earth so you can feel a nice stretch through your whole spine. Deep breath into the belly and expanding the chest. And slowly let it out as the arms slowly come back down to your sides. And if you'd like, you can take a moment to just kind of shake out. Shake your hands, shake your arms, shake your shoulders, shake your hips, shake your feet, shake your legs. Just let go of any tension, stress, worry, anything you're holding in the body. Just let it be very easeful. Okay, so now we're going to sit down. And if you'd like, you could, if you want to sit on a meditation cushion, if you have one handy, on the floor you can, or you can sit in your chair, whatever's comfortable for you. And we'll be sitting in what's called the 7 gestures posture. So the first is that the legs form a nice solid base for the body. If you're sitting in a chair, it's better not to have your legs crossed, just to have both feet flat on the ground. A little bit apart is nice too. It gives a nice solid base for the body. Hands can be on the knees, or if you prefer, they can be in your lap with the left under the right. Those are both meditation gestures. Arms are relaxed. Shoulders are down. If you'd like, you can roll them up and back and down, just to make sure they're in the most relaxed position. Chest is up and out a little bit. That helps to straighten the lower part of the spine. Chin is tucked in slightly. That helps to straighten the upper part of the spine and the neck. And the eyes will be either closed or gazing gently on the ground in front of us, about 3 feet. When we're not chanting, we will have our tongue curled so that the tip touches the top of the back teeth, upper teeth, and back of the upper teeth and the upper palate. And that little curl helps us breathe evenly through nose and mouth at the same time. And that's a really nice, relaxed way to breathe. So we're going to chant this mantra 10 times, and then we'll do a brief visualization and meditation. So this is the mantra for the Buddha, who lived in India 2,500 years ago. And Om is just a seed syllable that relates to the whole body energy. Muni means sage. Maha is great, so Mahamuni is great sage. Shakyamuni is, Shakya is the clan that the Buddha belonged to. It means lion, so the lion clan. And yay soha is kind of like so be it, may this kind of this energy enter the world.
And we can feel that as we chant each syllable, let the syllable just be our entire experience as much as possible, resonate through the body.
And this is a really good mantra to help us develop our wisdom, to help us relax before we meditate. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Yesoha. 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 So if you'd like, you can visualize a beautiful golden light coming from the Buddha's heart, entering your own body at the top of your head and flowing through the face and touching all the senses, relaxing the neck and throat, flowing into the arms and hands, flowing into the torso, transforming all of our internal organs into a body of light, and finally down into our feet and legs. If you'd like, you can also imagine the light spreading out from your own heart center to all the beings in the universe, bringing a relief to all of the suffering, all the illness, all the pain, all the sadness and worries. So we'll just sit for a few minutes. If you'd like, you can focus on the breath, bringing a nice, clean, fresh energy into the body, and letting out any tension, worries, fears on the out breath.
I really, really appreciate everything that you're teaching. And even more than that, I appreciate being in the presence of the energy that you both emit as a result of your devotion to your practice. I truly appreciate being in your presence. And I did speak of presence initially. So my question is this, it's a kind of a complicated question, and it may be more than can be answered, but there are numerous elements that have been referred to here. There was wisdom and compassion. There's love, joy, and equanimity. There's peace. There's the meaning of life. There's form and formlessness, and there's enlightenment. And of course, there's the Buddha.
Yes.
And there's more than that. I know there's more than that. There's the Eightfold Way, and there's many other things. But is it possible to explain how these all fit together? And you did explain how compassion arises out of wisdom, and I appreciate that very much. But if we just zoom in on what is the ultimate end, and that really does tie with my other chat questions. What is the ultimate end of Buddhism? Is it formlessness? Is it peace? Is it enlightenment? And if it's enlightenment, is enlightenment peace? Is enlightenment formlessness? Or would you mind saying what the ultimate end of the Buddhist practice is?
I'll just summarize all that for you. No, the ultimate end that we speak of in our tradition, and I would say all Tibetan traditions, is enlightenment. And, you know, all of the four immeasurables that we spoke of, so we have 2,500 years here of development. So starting in India and going through today. And so, but the if you say a goal, we don't even say goal, because you're not really actually going from someplace to someplace, but really more why I was kind of referring to ease is we're just kind of opening up to what's there in a sense. And this is not trivial. It's not like we sit and all of a sudden we get it, because our beings are just layers and layers and layers of experience, of learning, of, if we think of, prior lives of karma. And so the tradition has many, many, many ways to help us penetrate we'll just, in a simple way, say the hold of the ego. There's probably a lot more depth in that to get to this stage of enlightenment. And like I said, there's 2,500 years, but the essence is that enlightenment is, I hesitate to use terms because all these things have some kind of level of meaning that a scholar might say, no, that's not the right word, but I'm just going to say what comes from me here, which is that, but we have the enlightenment is the complete cutting through of all confusion, of all misunderstanding, of all false beliefs, of all patterns, all of it. And what comes through, not proclaiming to speak from personal experience directly, but is you might say this kind of light of wisdom. It's a great understanding. It comes along in a human life with, compassion and wisdom, but also then a great possibility of accomplishment, a great possibility of seeing the wisdom being in a whole new way. If you look at what Tartong Tulku's done, the founder of our organizations, there's an accomplishment that, would take 100 lifetimes for a lot of people. And it's because of this clarity. So it's all layers, and all these different teachings and all of these different concepts are all layers, are all things to help us break through these layers. And like in yoga, there's 8 limbs of yoga for different kinds of people. It's like that, there's 80, they say there's 84,000 doors to the Dharma, depending on the person. I don't know if that's helpful. But.
It is. Thank you. Thank you. Not to dominate, but I just have one more question. Why wouldn't I shine my Buddha light from my heart to the heart of the Buddha? Because that's what I did when I heard you say, let the Buddha shine his light. I shine my light to the Buddha's heart.
Wonderful.
And what was that experience? What was that experience, Tom?
It was an experience of, the best word would be formless presence. Formless
Nice.
presence.
Yeah, it's nice.
And of course, that's lovely. In the 3D realm, that's lovely.
So then I would challenge you to the next time, don't have a from and to in either direction.
Well, it just merged.
Yeah.
With your words, it just merged. It just merged.
Perfect.
Thank you for that. Thank you. There's no duality then.
Correct.
Yeah, thank
And I
you.
do that all the time. And there you're there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Rosalyn and Linda. This was so enlightening and so centering, which is, at least from my point of view, I needed something like this. And I feel that I need to engage in something like this on a daily basis, on a regular basis, because there's a lot of chaos around these days, and a lot of uncertainty, a lot of negativity. And, it's so easy to get carried away with all that, forget how empowering, this just being sort of compassionate, with others can be, just that one practice. So my question, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about, what are some of the ways in which we could maybe practice spiritual wellness, like make that a daily practice in all of our lives. So, some practical ways. We're just, at home, or we're working, whatever that may be. Take some time and just ensure that we adopt this habit. That's essentially what our goal is right now.
Yeah, great question. I really like to recommend, if you can find 10 minutes a day to meditate, that's really about the best thing you can do for yourself and for the world. And if you can do it in the morning, that's the best, because you kind of set the tone for your day. And you'll see, if you do that, that your day really will unfold in a different way. You'll get a much more grounded and calm start to your day, and that it helps you deal with all of the stress of modern life. And then if you start to notice, there's a cumulative effect too, that if you meditate each day for a longer period of time, that you start making better choices in your life, and things just, your life will unfold in a stronger, healthier, more balanced way. And I like to recommend, especially when we don't have COVID issues, but if you can find a group to meditate with. And even during this time, I'm sure there's online groups you can meditate with. And that's very helpful, because there's something about meditating in a group that supports you. There's a group energy to it. So those are the two things I highly recommend. If you want some books to help you, we've got some books on our website that talk about meditation. One I recommend is called Gesture of Balance, written by our founder and teacher. It's beautiful text about meditation. And then there's also the Kumne book, which has a lot more of these exercises in it. So those are the main things I would recommend.